Does a human being have the capacity for consciousness? Whatever you
Not if
want
it never reaches it.
Does a human being have capacity for consciousness?
Sure, a human being does, but
Yeah.
at what point is it a human being?
At the moment of conception, because
But
biology
it does not
confirms
have the form of a
human
human at
and
that
human,
point. It
when
has
they
the
have
form of a
sex, can
zygote.
only make a human. So it's absolutely a human being at the moment of conception when that unique genetic code comes into existence.
Yeah, potentiality
I
is not
die.
actuality.
Okay, I die, I go to heaven, God's like,
I don't believe
Kristen,
in heaven. That's
I'm
invalid.
not saying you, I'm saying me. I get to
I
heaven.
don't believe you would get to heaven either.
If a baby's involved, then it's not your body. There are two bodies involved.
I don't speak stupid. I didn't understand that.
Everyone, I have a video from Kristen where she's faced with this confrontation from this particular individual, and the way it unfolds is absolutely shocking, and I'll be sharing my thoughts along the way, so let's jump into it. Hey, watch.
I guess essentially I value an developed person's will.
You're ageist.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're ageist.
Yeah, absolutely, because like imagine if we had individuals with no will determining the course of society.
Well, how would you determine if an individual has no will? I mean, that's the slippery slope. Because a newborn, you could argue, and many do, has no will to live. A newborn simply is existing. Peter Singer, a very well-known professor, not a pro-life dude, at the University of Princeton, has argued, in fact, if we want to be philosophically consistent in our laws, and in his support of abortion, then of course we should allow after-birth abortion, at least until 3 months. The parents should be able to decide 3 months post-birth whether or not they want to keep that child alive, because he argues there is no fundamental, I mean, he acknowledges science, there's no fundamental difference between the newborn, the 2-day-old newborn, than the child in the womb.
So
Would you agree with Peter Singer?
You're essentially equating abortion to infanticide.
No, what I'm saying is you're arguing that a person's will to live determines their value and whether or not you think in your world that they should have the right to live. I'm pointing out to you that if that's your argument, you're free to stick to that argument. You need to be consistent with your argument then, and then be able to say, without apology, that you believe that children, 3 months out of utero who are born should be allowed to be killed and disposed
of. You
of.
believe that infants have no will to keep themselves alive, that they make no attempt to stay alive?
Well, I mean, no, I actually don't make the argument, because I've seen children in the
cry out
womb
for
make.
help?
I've seen children in the womb cry out for help as well. We have ultrasound images of abortion. So I'm actually not making that argument. I'm just helping you clarify your argument. That if you believe that a will to live is somehow pertinent to a
definitely
person's
believe
right to
that
exist.
A will to live, a consciousness has value, and I think valuing potential
What if I'm in a coma?
consciousness over an actual consciousness.
What if I'm
is absurd.
unconscious? Do I suddenly not become a person?
I said consciousness. Yes, if you lack consciousness completely, you cannot think by definition.
That's scary.
What is your oldest memory?
I have no idea what my oldest memory is. Probably 4.
4?
Yeah.
So before then you have no memories?
I'm sure I have them, but I don't remember them.
So they're not a part of your consciousness?
Well, I mean, that's actually not, I know where you're going with it, but that actually doesn't work either, because published peer-reviewed studies prove that children actually in the womb remember the voices of their parents. So when their children are born, they actually remember the people talking to them while they're in the womb. So that doesn't change.
So,
but my
your
child
argument is
who remembered
based on
my voice when he was
simultaneously
born.
being able to remember and not remember at the same time. That's absurd.
So I'm sorry, what are you trying to say? That I wasn't a person until I can remember my memories?
I'm saying before you had consciousness, there was nothing to deprive you of.
No, I say even if somebody is unconscious in a coma, I would say that person still has value. You're making an assessment that you want to go around and be like, you have this value,
But if a
and you have this
person
much
never had a
value.
consciousness in the first
Every
place,
human being has the ability to have consciousness.
has
and
the
you
ability to have
Yeah,
consciousness. I'm
absolutely.
talking about before that consciousness comes into existence, before it begins to manifest.
The hardening of the heart is a gradual process that occurs when a person or society rejects the truth in favor of emotions or desires. This resistance of truth or to truth leads to a distorted understanding of the world, and ultimately to spiritual blindness. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, when people are unable to recognize the deeper meaning or divine purpose behind life's experiences, when emotions take precedence over logic, it becomes harder to understand the truth that is rooted in God's word. You see? In such an environment, individuals may prioritize fleeting emotions and momentary comforts, missing out on the lasting peace, lasting hope, and understanding that comes with embracing logic, logical truth actually, and divine wisdom.
So you're arguing like when the cerebral
consciousness
cortex
does
is
not
fully
exist.
formed? So are you okay with abortion up until like the cerebral cortex is formed at like 21, 22 weeks? But then
Again,
you're
I'm not-
against abortion after that because the brain is fully formed at that point. The cerebral cortex is in place. Like, is that your argument?
I'm saying we don't have enough understanding as to when that decision is made to enforce a law that prevents people from being able to live their own life.
Live their own life to do what? To
That there
choose
is a
death for another human
consciousness
being.
that is being destroyed. And that seems to be your big moral objection, that a life is ending.
It is.
But if that life never came to be, if that consciousnness never
that
began
life,
existing,
that's a
then what
scientifically
was
inaccurate
lost?
statement that you just said. That life never came to be. That life has come to be.
I don't
The
know.
life has come
I
to
mean,
be.
I
You're
guess the
debating.
grass is alive too,
Your
but I don't
philosophy is
value that as much
conflicting
as
with
human
biology.
consciousness.
Your philosophy is conflicting with biology because it is a life. It's not a life that comes to be. When egg and sperm unite, a unique genetic code comes into existence.
But
That is
you're
a
saying
human
life
life.
should be valued just because it's
Yeah.
alive. At that
Yeah,
point,
because I
how
don't
do we
believe in
eat?
discriminating
'Cause we
human
only
beings.
eat
The
things
pro-life
that were
movement's
alive.
our argument is very simple. We believe that human beings are special and they shouldn't be killed simply at the whim of somebody else and how convenient or inconvenient they may be to somebody else. And that starts a slippery slope because what you've just argued, sir.
There you and I have a moral disagreement, though. I or have a basic disagreement. I don't think humans are special. And
You think I'm the same as my values the same as a cockroach?
no, yeah, actually, in the grand scheme of the universe, yes. I think you are about as valuable as a cockroach.
Say what?
That's accurate.
So are you a mass murderer every time you drive in a car and you kill like cockroaches on the road?
No, because I don't believe their lives have value. They're not conscious.
And no human being has value.
I value consciousness.
What, they're alive. Cockroaches are alive. Cows are alive.
Grass
they're
is
aware
alive.
that they're
Everything
alive.
you eat is alive. Are you a mass murderer for eating?
No, absolutely
Then how
not,
are
because
you a
those are
murderer
not
for
human
ending
beings.
this life that has no consciousness?
Does a human being have the capacity for consciousness? Whatever you
Not if
want
it
to,
never reaches it.
does a human being have capacity for consciousness?
Sure, a human being does, but
No.
at what point is it a human being?
At the moment of conception, because biology
But it does not
confirms
have the form of a
human
human at
and
that point.
human,
It
when
has
they
the
have
form of a
sex, can
zygote.
only make a human. So it's absolutely a human being at the moment of conception when that unique genetic code comes into existence. Let's assume I'm wrong. Let's assume I'm completely wrong, that human life does not begin. Biology, 97%, 96% of biologists are lying. Fetal embryology
At
books
no
are
point did
lying.
I say these biologists were lying.
Well,
I agree
okay,
that it's
let's
alive.
just say
I just
it's
don't
not.
value it for being
Let's
alive.
just say, okay,
alone.
it's not
As
alive.
No one
Okay,
values
fine.
anything.
So let's
just
say
for the fact
I'm
that
wrong
it's
in
alive.
saying that human beings who have the potential for consciousness have value. I'm completely wrong. And that it didn't matter. I don't know if you're religious or not, but
Yeah, potentiality
I
is
die.
not actuality.
Okay, I die. I go to heaven. God's like,
I don't believe
Kristen,
in heaven. That's
I'm
invalid.
not saying you. I'm saying me. I get to heaven.
I don't believe you would get to heaven either.
Okay, well, it's a cartoon in my head, dude. I get to heaven and God says, hey, you just wasted your whole life. You just wasted your whole life caring about something that doesn't matter. These zygotes in the womb, they don't have a consciousness yet. They didn't matter. I didn't care. Dispose of all of them, okay? Just say I'm wrong. Just say I'm wrong. What have I advocated for?
There's nothing.
What have if I am wrong in my life mission, what have I advocated for?
Taking rights away from women.
I have advocated inconveniencing women across America for 9 months of their
Ruining
life.
their lives, not inconveniencing.
Not ruining, because I
Ruining.
believe women are empowered and actually can make a choice whether to place with an adoptive family or not, if they choose not to parent, or take advantage of our numerous safe haven laws that are available in every single state. If I'm wrong, I've inconvenienced women across America for 9 months.
Again,
you're wrong-
really devaluing.
If you're wrong, what does
really
it mean?
Devaluing.
It means you've
how much
advocated
of
for the
an
destruction
impact
of 60
taking
million
away
people.
people's rights is.
In a society without religion, everything would become acceptable to those who choose to live by their own standards, without the checks and balances provided by religious teachings that emphasize love, respect, compassion, and accountability. The understanding of right and wrong would no longer be anchored in universal principles. Just think about it. Or of the belief of a higher power or a moral lawgiver. Just think about it. Instead, it would be entirely subjective, with each individual deciding what actions are justified or ethical based on their own personal feelings or desires. Can you imagine that? I know to some people, they may view this as a freedom of expression, but it will lead to moral chaos. It will lead to moral chaos, as different people could easily justify harmful behavior simply because it aligns with their own self-interest or perceived worldview. Those are the dangers.
Once again, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And when you fundamentally disorder those rights, terrible, terrible, terrible things happen. When human beings say, my liberty supersedes another person's right to life, or my pursuit of a profit
they're not a person.
supersedes...
They don't
the Supreme Court and the Congress once said that black people weren't persons either. Do you agree with that? No, of course you don't agree with that. You would say that's absurd, just like how I would say that's absurd. What I'm saying is this is a human rights movement, and sadly, many of our countrymen are going of the way of what happened when we had slavery exist in the United States. They've fallen into a trap by the predatory abortion industry, who profits off of the despair of women, who profits off of every abortion, that says, oh, no, they're not persons. They're not persons. Just like how the slave industry said that black Americans weren't persons. Those things are equally wrong, because they're human beings. Your skin color, your age, your sex, your gender, who you were born to, whether or not your parents loved you, doesn't change your value. That the moment of conception, when egg and sperm united, you became you, and you had a unique genetic code, and that you, sir, are still worthy of value. I am still worthy of value. A child inside of me is still worthy to be valued, still has fundamentally, they're a part of our species.
But you would agree that a potential value is different from an actual value, correct?
No, I never said potential. They all have value. There's no potential value. Humans don't have, they're a human with potential. They're not a potential human. I'm a human with potential, just like my child is a human with potential, just like how a 5-day-old embryo is a human with potential.
I disagree.
Because I think that what you're presenting is a slippery slope, and it would be impossible to legislate a slippery slope based on your definition of what human beings have certain potential. Because what you then do is you create a class of human beings. You create a class. Well, you have more consciousness than you. You have a larger brain development.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about any consciousness that can actually be
let's go back
observed.
to the question I asked like 10 minutes ago. When the cerebral cortex is formed in utero, we know children can be born. There's been cases of children being born at 21 weeks and like 5 days. Are you against abortion after that point? When the cerebral cortex has been formed, when we know a child can be born alive and is existing in this earth.
I am against abortion on that point, but not based on that value. I'm against abortion at that point because I value autonomy over a potential life. Because again, you think that it is alive, and
I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense. You said you're
think of a
against
human
abortion
being
because you
as
value
a
autonomy.
living, thinking, rational thing.
That
That's
doesn't.
not what a zygote is.
That didn't make sense. You said you're against abortion at like 21 weeks, 5 days because you value
I'm not
autonomy.
against. I'm not saying that I'm against abortion because I believe in the autonomy of a woman's body.
God, I need a whiteboard to trace this circular logic. So you said that you believe that the consciousness, not the potential to have consciousness determines your value as a human being. I'm telling you that children have been born at 21 weeks and 5 days. So we know definitively, without any fancy-dancy studies, that a human being can be conscious at 21 weeks and 5 days because those human beings are alive today and they were obviously born with a consciousness. So, okay.
I don't
then
think
are
it's
you
so obvious.
So
that they're
why
born
would you
with a
support
consciousness.
abortion?
I think the consciousness develops over time.
Why these people just want to be listened to but are not willing to listen? In reality, they are not asking for acceptance. No, they are not. They are demanding and forcing their sexuality on others as the primary focus. But under the guise of having superior, higher moral standards, they're expecting the government to impose laws to enforce their views. You see? And usually acceptance by society requires a level of assimilation to the accepted norms, not pointing out your differences, criticizing others who disagree with you, then expecting to be embraced by them. It doesn't make sense. No, it doesn't.
So, okay, and you're setting all the laws for America. When do you think a person has enough consciousness that they deserve fundamentally not to be
First of all,
administered
I'm not
cardiac arrest
bringing in
drugs?
every law in America. I'm just defending abortion.
Well, if you're defending abortion, then tell me when you think, and you said the reason you support abortion is because of you believe that human beings with consciousness are more special and have more value than human beings without consciousness, a scary argument. I'm telling you, we know definitively that children at 21 weeks to 40 weeks, when they're still gestating in their mother's womb, have that ability for consciousness.
I disagree. I think they have a potential for consciousness, but they are not yet conscious.
But I just told you, you could Google, premature babies. Premature babies have been born and have survived at 21 weeks and 5 days. So, therefore, without any fancy science, we know that at 21 weeks and 5 days in utero, you have consciousness because those babies are born with their eyes open. They clearly know what's going on.
So you believe that everything with eyes that can see is conscious?
No, absolutely not. I'm
Then
trying
what
to get
makes
you
that
to
baby
your
conscious
argument.
just because its
You have
eyes
an
are open?
extremist argument, sir, and you're trying to say you're justifying your extremist argument that abortion should be legal for any reason, even if a mother doesn't like the gender of her baby, which is an extremist argument that 90% of Americans, except for Joe Biden and his administration, would disagree with. So you have an extremist argument, and you're trying to justify this extremist argument in favor of violence using the ability to have consciousness. I'm clearly showing you that children can be born at 21 weeks and 5 days, 6 days. They have a consciousness. So I'm asking you to find common ground with me. Then would you at least agree?
I disagree with that statement. I think they have the potential for consciousness. They are not a developed human mind at that point.
When does a human get a developed mind?
That I can't answer.
That's a Peter Singer argument, because that's what Peter Singer says. I read his book, Philosophy 101 in college. He's a well-known philosopher who argues that, in fact, yes, he is speciesist and he is ageist, that you really can't, there's no fundamental difference between a newborn who was just born a week ago versus a child in the womb. So therefore, if you want our laws to be philosophically consistent, sir, you should be okay with advocating for allowing parents to allow a baby to die about 3 months after birth. Because that's what science says we can definitively prove.
Infants,
Are you okay with if parents letting children die?
I'm talking about a woman not being forced to grow something inside of herself against her will.
So a child's location, it's not consciousness you have an issue with. You have an issue with someone's geography.
Tough love is a principle that combines compassion and honesty, showing someone that you care about them while also being honest with them. Even when the truth may be difficult to hear, ladies and gentlemen, it's not about being harsh or unkind. No, it's not. Rather, it's about offering guidance, setting boundaries, and speaking the truth because you care about the other person's well-being, especially in the long term, their long-term growth. You see, tough love doesn't shy away from addressing hard issues. It doesn't. No, it doesn't. It embraces the responsibility of confronting problems head on. You see? Even if it is uncomfortable, in doing so, it helps people to grow. It literally helps people to grow, make better choices, and ultimately improve their lives. It's rooted in love, but it's not afraid to challenge behavior or beliefs that may be harmful or misleading. In summary, preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ is an incredibly worthwhile mission. It brings about transformation, fosters love, justice, hope, truth, and fulfills God's divine command. It grants eternal significance and eternal joy to those who embrace it. Ultimately, it's the greatest gift we can offer, bringing lasting change for individuals and communities alike, reflecting God's love and purpose for the world. So, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to click on the next one and don't forget to like, to comment, and subscribe. I will see you again next time. Bye bye for now.